All right, everybody, welcome. Super excited here. Get sparked with Adobe. This has been great. Chris, stage is yours.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. It's, gosh, this is what, session 4. So here we are. This is with the Adobe Spark, using Adobe Spark in your classroom. And I'm trying to make that transition from co-hosting and then going to presenting. So give me a little time to gather. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right.
Good.
How many people have used Adobe?
Not much.
Okay, so I'm going to just go through this, and as I look at this, first of all, this is focusing on 2 areas of Adobe Spark, how I use it in my classroom, but I'm going to use, you're going to have this time to play around with it, and I'm going to be here to help you out, because I believe in choices. So with that being said, we'll go to next slide. Everybody, if they just put in the chat, they introduce themselves, what they teach, and so we get a general idea of where people are at. If you've used Adobe Spark, how you might have used it. Okay. So I use a variety of platforms in my classroom. Adobe is one of the ones that the students have been using quite often, and so we use Flipgrid. We use I use Pear Deck as a delivery platform with Google Slides. We do HyperDocs, but I found that as I started experimenting with Adobe Spark, that the students, it was fairly intuitive, and the students were able to use it quite easily, with the exception of turning things in on Canvas. That was the one area where they struggled a lot with. But what I'm going to do here is we're going to take a look at the different ways it can be used, some of the things that I did. So hopefully in this time, you might be able to get started and actually take home a lesson or an idea that you can use Monday in your classroom. So as I said, this is more of a hands-on type of workshop where you get to try to look at some of the ideas that I have used and perhaps implement them or come up with your own ideas. So if you simply click on the little icon here, you should be able to log directly into Adobe. So if you just click on that, and that should take you directly to Adobe. And typically when you log in, it depends on what your school district, if they've given you access or how you log in. I know for our school district, Santa Ana Unified, we log in with our Google accounts. I'm not sure how different school districts deal with that. Some of them might use Microsoft. So if you log in, we're going to get a start just by going through that login process first. And then we'll take a look at some of the things that could be done. So first, we'll have everybody log in. If you're having problems logging in, I'll put the link in for Adobe and we'll give it a shot. Okay, some people can't log in already. All right, so it may depend on the restrictions your school district has. That I cannot determine. Usually, if you already have an account, you should be able to log in. Okay, so people are getting the access denied. I'm going to put just the Adobe link in. and see if that, so depending on what your school district is requiring or how you log in, you can just log in usually by, and sometimes with an email. If you just go with the, I would go with the teacher, typically. If you're a teacher, you usually can get directly in with just use your email account. Unless it's denied, then you may have to use a personal email. Yeah, so if you're in Santa Ana Unified, okay, David, I'm not quite sure what the restrictions are. That was one of the things going into this. I wasn't sure if people were able to log in. It really depends on the access their school district's providing. But I'm going to go ahead and go through this. So one of the things that I do is I have my students use Adobe Spark Video. Okay, and with this, they are able to create a lot of different stories. When you log in, usually there's many options. I'm going to focus specifically on video and also doing a flyer or an Insta story today. Okay, thank you, Valerie. Yes, you use your personal email to create an account. See, once again, I'm not quite sure what school districts have as far as restrictions for logging into Adobe. Some of them haven't provided any access yet. So on the slide 5, you have the actual, the process of how to produce things, okay? Step by step, you select a video. These are the steps that I take, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the slides to show you what you can produce, and then we'll go through logging in, and I want people to actually try to produce something. And see, just so you can experiment, because I know Scott was in the last session with myself, and they were talking about, like, how do you use this? And so I want to give everybody a chance to use it. And if you have questions, we can perhaps answer them, and you could go into Monday with an idea or at any time of the week. So these are the processes of what you can do. I will go straight to what we're going to look at, some of the things that were done today. Okay, so these are lessons that I have done in my class. One was an Instagram story. Most of my students they're very familiar with Instagram, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. We'll take a look at this concept of an in-flight video, and hopefully you have access to my resources. They were on the actual presentation page, where you could just click on those, and you could open this up at the same time as I progress through it in case you need to access the links. So the first one is Instagram story. And what my students did here, this was based upon using Instagram, and I'm a history teacher. And so what they had to do was find a historical figure from a time period, okay? And these lessons are also available on the Adobe Educational Exchange website. For this particular one, I was looking at they were able to do research, okay? So as a history teacher, I had them going to the Gilder Lehrman website, what's called EduHam, based upon the Hamilton play. And they were able to access a group of people who they could select. And basically I told them, I said, you are their social media manager. You have to promote this person. And in doing this, you have to know some background information about the person. If you teach US history, you probably recognize Lewis Hine as he was one of the people that advocated for better laws in child labor through his photography. And so my students had to go through, and they accessed the Adobe Spark. In this case, it was the Instagram post. They have a lot of different posts are Instagram templates they can use. And so once again, being a believer of student choice, my students were able to take a look at the various templates, okay? So for example, if I'm on Adobe and I simply, I would start with a collage for this particular one. I don't want them to do an Instagram post, but I'm actually asking them to do a story. I'm gonna just go skip here and I have them do the actual Instagram story, okay? Many of them are familiar with that. They simply click on this and I give them the choice to choose the templates. Okay, so for this particular assignment, I said, all right, you have to at least produce 4 images. And of course, you can see here, there's lots of templates. So my students had to decide, all right, which template do I want? They chose those templates. And with their research, they were on the Gilder Lehrman's site researching information about our founding father era personalities, okay? And they had to come up with 3 to 5 images. And of course, use as you can see, a quote. They needed to make a significant contribution. What did that person do? What this was doing, it's developing their literacy skills, okay? I have found, especially with teaching remotely, that my students, as we heard earlier, don't want to write a paragraph, 2 or 3 paragraph essay. But if I could use little things like this, not only it's incorporating the research skills, it's also incorporating the ability to take something, and part of this assignment, they had to paraphrase as well. They had to take a quote and what's called copy edit, take a quote and then use their own information to modify it so it could work for them in the story and with the various pictures. So this was a copy of the Instagram story post. The next one that I used was an in-flight video, okay? And this was actually my students are doing this to plan a trip. They could go anywhere in the world, but it has to be a historical site. And in doing this, they have to create an in-flight video, but there's a lot of background information they have to do first. Take a look at the historical site. Why is it significant? I'll just play this through you so you can see how quickly, what it looks like.
Welcome aboard Time Travel Airlines. I am your host, and I will be guiding you with some information regarding our flight. Our destination today will be the American Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln, leader of the Union Army, recently wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, giving freedom to all slaves. Battles between the Confederate armies and the Union armies are still currently taking place. Confederate General Robert E. Lee continues the South's attempt at secession. Unfortunately, we're seeing a terrible treatment of human beings sold into slavery. We are seeing many individuals, including Frederick Douglass, speak and work tirelessly for the end of slavery and the right of newly freed Black Americans to vote. And with this information, we ask you that you buckle your seats as we arrive to our destination.
So one of the things they had to do here is obviously they have to do a background information, and this is great it could be for anything, any subject area. And if you're taking a look at a literary character, whatever it might be. Now, my students are in the process of creating this right now. It also requires them to do script writing, which is real important because a lot of times students just want to jump right into it and record, and then they realize like, oh, wow, this isn't sounding all too well. So there's a lot of skills that are involved here. It's a great way for students to explore a particular area in history. Yes, I'll provide the copy of the slides. They're actually on the Q website, and when I get done here, I'll put them in as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard.
Okay, this next one here is, this was an Adobe Spark video assignment where students had to create a fake news story. And what we did is we went over literacy skills, media literacy skills using the SHAG website, what's called lateral reading. We preempted that, and then we had students, and this was done pretty easily. They just had to come up with a story that, and I told them, I said, make it as outrageous as possible. And they had to come up with 2 stories that were fake news and 1 story that was a real news story. This was then posted on Flipgrid after they finished on Adobe. The whole class had to take a look at it. And on Flipgrid, they had to determine each student which story was the real story. Now this one's, it's going to be fairly obvious as we watch it. So the work itself, you could see in 20 seconds, not very long. It allows students to also take a look at it, and they were able to post their comments on Flipgrid. So you were able to incorporate the peer assessment. They had fun with this because they really tried to outdo each other with the most outrageous story. Now, a lot of them would just go online and try to find something, but I really pushed them to create their own. Or they would find something and then modify it with the visuals. So that was one of the other options that I've used with the Adobe Spark video. The next one is a great use of just telling a story. Now this can be done from, it's a very good summative type of lesson or at the end of a unit. Let's see, Diana, would you upload the fake news? Yes, and I actually have a process for that that's in this presentation. So I want my students, in this case, we studied the Constitution. And I was really trying to figure out, okay, in our school district before, they had to write a 5-paragraph essay on a prompt. There was a DBQ. There was no way they were going to do that this year. So I had to come up with something that was something that I could take a look at and say, okay, I think they grasped this concept. And what they had to do here with this particular lesson or this summative assignment was they had to create, I said, look, I want you to teach something. I want you to teach a component of the Constitution. It could be the 3 branches. It could be separation of powers. You decide what it's going to be. And you have to teach it to a person who would be taking the US Constitution, the citizenship test. So this is what they did. And once again, it's done pretty, they don't have to spend that much time on it. They just have to know the content. So in a way, it's a test, if you want. Now, one of the things here is they also had the ability to narrate this as well, as they might be reading it or just giving a paraphrasing the information. Most of my students are still at that point where they're still reading off the screen. But what they were doing basically is teaching somebody. I said, look, this is your time to teach somebody. And so once again, this is a great summative type of assessment for the students. For me, it was much better than reading the 5 paragraphs because there's no way I wanted to read 250 essays, which probably wouldn't have happened anyway. But this was easy to look at, pretty easy to assess. And the students were able to, they had the choice of what their area of expertise was. Okay.
Hey, Chris, can I jump in with a comment here? Because This dovetails with something I just read recently. You know, a lot of us are concerned with kids plagiarizing. So they cut and paste it from Wikipedia and then they're just reading you the Wikipedia. And this one teacher said, switch it and make it so that they have to write it in the first person. And that way they have to do the literary heavy lifting of changing it from third person narrative to first person. And it actually reinforced the fact that they are there. They're supposed to be teaching it to you so they can say, I am here in the Vietnam War. I am at the Battle of Key, you know, and it kind of flies in the face of what I was told as a high school teacher, where you want your kids writing in the third person because that conveys the academic vocabulary and academic knowledge. But really, for it to stick in their brain, you want them writing and speaking in the first person.
Right, right. And then one of the issues too, as you just mentioned, Scott, was the copy and pasting. And I definitely ran into that. That's fairly common with our students, who a lot of them struggle with the language issues, and they're still not they're not proficient yet in English. And so sometimes they revert to that type of writing. But one of the reasons why I used this was because I was trying to take the stress off from actually writing large pieces, and hopefully just tell them, look, what can you put on one page in one sentence? That's all you have to do. So it's kind of using that chunking idea, but I definitely do like the first person, because that requires them to modify the text. And also, as you said, it's okay, I'm delivering it to you. Okay, so what we have here are the different activities you can do. I'm not quite sure the time period where we're at with the time. It's from 2 to 2:45. Is that correct, Scott? Omar?
Gosh, I've totally lost track of time.
Oh, Omar? I think Omar's our moderator. Omar, it's at 2:45.
Hi there. My apologies. I was actually just reflecting on what was just shared and thinking about some of my own challenges when writing in reflection, especially in this new era where you want to make sure you're using appropriate pronouns, as in he, her, she, they. And I guess a wondering I had in that moment was, when reflecting and writing, when you don't know what someone's preferred pronoun is, how do you write that? And I remember being in a situation where I was trying my best to be as neutral as possible, but I totally took away any reference of that in my articulation. And the person that read it said, you know, gee, if I was that person, I would want it to say what my preferred pronoun was. I know that isn't specifically what you were referring to, but the prompt that was made kind of had me thinking about that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna look at the time right now. Mr. Sir, one moment, please.
Right.
It's 2:20, Chris. I think you've got until 2:45.
All right, thank you.
Yes, until 2:45.
And I couldn't even remember who the moderator was here, so thank you. So you have the option to, and the link is here. So these are the various things you could do. These are there's a historical figures project, and that was the one I used with the Insta story. It goes here, you can see the various ideas. You can use it for a historical figure, a book character. It can be done in pretty much any subject area. It's not just limited to history as I teach, but you can go anywhere with it. Kids, as you probably know, most of our middle school students are Instagram, Snapchat. They're familiar with the stories. And it gives the directions here about if you wanted to just dive into this and take a look at it. I will, just a second, I'll give the link. The link should be also on the OCQ, so you can access this, so you can actually dive in and take a look at some of these ideas. I'll briefly go through these ideas and then let people get started so they have some time to experiment, so I can help out if needed. So there's the Insta story. There's the directions here for it. Okay, I try to keep them simple. You also have, this is the historical figures assignment that I provided where the students went onto the Gilder Lehrman website. Once again, I'm a believer in choices. They had lots of choices to choose from. And then they would create the Instagram story as a social media manager. I gave them a template. Now, one of the things that was real important is with my students, they need a lot of structure. If I just say, okay, go look for information, then they're not going to get the information. They're not going to give me the information that I'm looking for. And so I provided them with a research template, which made it easier for them to find the information going onto Gilder Lehrman website, which is, it has some pretty heavy language, but taking a look at these questions, it's something they could actually just type right in or even copy and paste it. And I was okay with that because ultimately the Instagram story, they have to modify, they have to do what's called copy edit. And this right here is the directions for the in-flight lesson. Okay, I had my students do a Google Arts and Culture a flight to a particular city where they were looking at a museum, and I had them actually going through flight cost and planning their whole flight. And so these are the directions I provided for them. You can see it's a 3-day lesson. And so I provided as much detail as possible for them. They're in the process of doing this right now. They're finding out that they can travel around the world, and they're also finding out about flying, which a lot of them, they always have their parents, if they fly, their parents are booking them, but they're finding out on like cost. They're finding out that there's a lot of different airlines. I've told them about the Tuesday, Wednesday flying. And so we're incorporating a lot of skills in here in order to create the Adobe Spark video. So if you use that term app meshing, I guess you could use that for this as well. This one right here is the 2 Lies and a Truth. And this is the one where the students were creating their own fake news story. And it used, I really like this one because they were using the media literacy story. They were producing something on Adobe Spark, and they're also incorporating the peer evaluation on Flipgrid. So this was just a meld of different applications and platforms. And they had a lot of fun with this particular one because it really, it pushed them to, my dogs, I'm sorry about my dog. It pushed them to really get creative. And the directions are here for this. And as far as uploading, I've gone through the process. I think somebody asked me about this. Would you upload the fake news to Flipgrid? So I've actually given you the whole process right here. And these are some of the resources. So what I'm going to give people time to just kind of get into this, and so that you can ask questions. I'll be here because I want people to experiment with this, because this is probably the only time that you're going to get a chance to actually do something before you go back to the classroom. Any questions?
Chris, can they import other pictures, or do they only have, like I'm playing around with the Instagram kind of collage, can they only use the free photos that are there, or can they import other pictures?
So when I have my students do something, a lot of times I tell them to take screenshots, especially, we also talk about what can and cannot be used. But yes, they can create pictures. So if I'm going to do an actual picture, I'm going to just pick one right here. I could do a screenshot, and what happens with the screenshot, I could then upload it to the template I'm using. Now this is also for the videos as well as the Instagram. So with the image here, let's say I'm going to do a screenshot. I'm going to upload a picture. It's a wonderful screen. So let's say I just plop this in here for Flipgrid. Okay. So I can upload my own pictures as well. I recommend this with the screenshots. They do have photos, but they're limited. And in my class, because we look at history, I do tell them they could go on to, for example, Wiki Commons, and we talked about pictures on, I think, Library of Congress as well, where they can just download, save them, and then upload them again. Video clips. Tiffany, I don't know about the video clips for the transitions. You can upload video clips. I've looked, but I haven't done any yet. Any other questions? So this one right here would be the Insta story. If you were doing if you're doing the videos, you simply go to the slideshow, which gives the video option. And I always skip these right here, but they do have, depending on what you're trying to teach, they do have different templates, or I usually start from scratch. Yes, you can add, that's one of the things you could add, the sound. So for example, if I'm doing a video, and I'll show you right now, if I'm doing a video, this little mic icon right here is the recording icon. Typically, you only can get about 8 to 9 seconds in. That's what they recommend. So I could just start off by saying, here we are at OCQ. We are going to do a quick video lesson using Adobe Spark. Okay, I listen to it. Here we are at OCQ. We are going to do a quick video lesson using Adobe Spark. Okay, and I put my picture in. It does allow for videos. You can upload videos. So if you had a video, I haven't done that yet. I typically go with the photos. So when you upload it to, yes, when you do upload it to Flipgrid, it doesn't play the sound, and I haven't figured out a way around that yet. But the purpose, typically when I did the media lesson, they had to have text. Okay, so as long as they could see the picture and the text, then the other students were able to assess it or evaluate it. So just to put something together real quick, let's say I want a photo. You can add their photos or take a photo. You have all of these different options. I can upload a photo. You can find the free photos here. If you have photos in your drive, you can use those as well. This uses Pixabay, so if I'm going to type in, let's say, Washington, DC, I could put that in, and there I have the capital. And let's say I'm talking about the Constitution, our nation's government. And then I'm done with that first. I'm done with that first slide. So you determine on like how much you want them to do. You can build this. So in order to get a new slide, I just do this here. And because I built mine from scratch, I decide how far I want to go. I could add 4, 5, 6, 7 slides. Tiffany, I've actually used I used Adobe Spark when we were actually in session. I had a podcasting class and I would make my videos on Adobe Spark for promotional videos or to show what we were doing. It is free. As long as you have access to it, you're in business.
All right, are there any other questions for Chris? Okay, well, I'm just going to say thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for doing that. There's a lot of great stuff here. I'm glad I downloaded your slide deck so I can go through these things again. But again, we're going to have this as a recording. It will be on the YouTube channel as well, so you can even revisit it and kind of take a peek at some of the other things that are happening. But other than that, nice job, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so if everybody wants to head back to the main room, you can play with Adobe Spark for a little bit, then head on back. We appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Todd.